I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm very excited to be here. Oh, yeah. Those are two different questions. uh, I got into marijuana. Actually, I got into trading and marijuana at the same time early in 2018. I had just missed the big last rush on marijuana and didn't realize it. And I was riding a 2 year downhill run. Um, so I started the page in about June of 2018 with 14 people. We hit a high of 15,000 and cut it back to 10,000. And that's where we're at right now. And excited to be a part of such a big organization all about this. Mhm. Right. Thanks. There is quite a lot going on the government front, and we're just talking about the U.S. right now, particularly. Um, Obviously, most people know about the safe banking. When we get banking, that changes the game. When you put blood inside the veins, things work a lot better. Uh, we've also got another one. Uh, they're trying to repeal the E208, which is the tax ruling, which disallows all of cannabis companies to have any deductions whatsoever for taxes. This in itself, you give these companies the right to deduct all their deductions like any other company does, and I bet more than 50% of the companies would probably be in profit by now.
Maybe on my side. They're saying they can't hear somebody. I don't know if it's me or you. Here we go. Can you guys hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Are we working now? This is
Testing one, two, three.
live streams. The live streams they tend to have technical issues, but we'll get through it. Just let us know in the chat there. Can you hear me now, guys? Yeah, you. They can hear you. They can't hear me though. Hopefully they can hear me
That's
now.
good. Well,
Yeah,
maybe
that's.
I should keep talking.
Let's see what we got here. Just let me know in the chat, and then we'll continue on. We should be good now.
I think the cannabis industry is going to see its year. I think
Okay.
2021 is going to be a very instrumental year so that these laws are going to open up the doors so that the floodgates of money can come in. Um, there are many hurdles right now we're getting across simply because we're not legal.
Yeah.
Money flow, getting on the exchanges. I do believe the American MSOs are going to do much better than the Canadian stocks. They're great to trade, the Canadian stocks,
Yeah.
but I think growth, the serious money is going to come when we get the routing to marketing taken care of,
Yeah.
when we can move products from California to Michigan and vice versa. This is when we're going to explode. And that's on the cusp of happening right now.
Yeah. Now let me ask you about that because I do have some concerns as far as the MSOs go. When it becomes decriminalized to where the big corporations, say like Amazon, can get involved, do you think that's going to be a problem for those? Those MSOs are big companies, but they're not big compared to like the top companies in the country that could possibly get involved. Like Amazon likes to have their fingers up every butthole there is in the country. So I wouldn't put it past them to jump into the pot sector when they're able to.
Oh, I'm sure everybody wants a piece of the pie, and I'm
Yeah,
sure that's one of the reasons it's being delayed and being legalized because of positioning by people with money and people in positions of power, because it is going to be huge. This is why it was knocked down in the 1940s. When Henry Ford drove up in a car made out of hemp panels and driving on hemp fuel, the industry for steel and oil got scared, and it
Hmm.
took us 80 years to get back here. That's how big it was, $1 billion industry then
Yeah.
at their prices. So I believe everybody wants a piece of this pie. Am I worried about it? I don't think so, because the consumers don't want to buy their pot from Amazon. They don't want to go to a discount store for quality merchandise. They're going to stick, you want quality cars, you don't buy a generic Hyundai, you get yourself a Ferrari. You get what you want if you can afford it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's the
they're going to get a
question.
piece of the pie, but I'm not worried about them.
Okay, you're not worried about them because I kind of thought those MSOs could be doing good, and then probably some of the big corporations might come in and do some buy them up, do some reverse mergers or whatever, and buy some of those smaller companies up, which is a good thing for investors anyway. So that could be a good thing. But then we do see where here lately some of the big corporations are trying to weed out their competition. So that's something I just a thought that I had that I thought
You're
was
right. It
interesting.
will. There will be a lot of activity, and I think that's what we just need. I mean, if people like Amazon are interested in this industry, what else needs to be said?
Yeah,
Everybody is interested. You need to be in the boat before Amazon gets their feet into it.
absolutely. I think that's the one thing most of us retail traders have going on is that most of the institutions and hedge funds aren't really too big into cannabis. I mean, here lately, I think they've kind of been moving around, moving some money into some cannabis stocks, like Altria, which is Marlboro, Juul, and several companies like that. They own
Right.
45% of Kronos Group.
Yes,
So
sir.
there is some big money being moved into these smaller companies. But I think that financing problem, like you said, if those bills pass, that'll open up the doorway for all the finances for these different companies. So,
I agree.
so you think the MSOs is where it's at? Me personally, I'm a big fan of Planet 13 because I've actually been to that dispensary. Do you think
Mhm.
that is something that could grow? Kind of because they're going for like a tourist industry angle on it, which I've not really seen from any other cannabis companies.
That's right. They're
So
also building. They have plans to build one down by Walt Disney now. Um,
in Florida,
Planet 13. Yeah,
oh
you didn't know
wow.
that?
Well, the last time I heard they were going to buy one, this was before COVID hit. They were going to buy a property in California to do one beside Disneyland, and then COVID.
Disneyland. I stand corrected.
Okay,
Disneyland. You're right.
okay.
You're right.
But yeah, and I know they backed off from it, and then COVID hit, and prices dropped, and they actually got the property for cheaper, was what my understanding was. So
I like Planet 13. I think they are very unique and all dispensaries. Planet 13 is an experience. It's
yeah,
not just a dispensary. They are in a tourist area, which is unlike most places, with getting 1 million people a day into that city. That's 50 million rotating customers coming
hmm
through that city every year. And they want to be able to tell the story of going to Planet 13 and buying some smoke, bringing some home. Hopefully, they can get it on the plane and get it home.
yeah. We don't. I'm not endorsing any of that, but yeah, I'm sure that
Not
happens.
yet. Not yet.
But yeah, Planet 13 is definitely interesting. But what about the other dispensaries? There's I'm trying to think of some of the other ones I saw in Vegas, but I can't remember. It's been like a year since I've been to Vegas. But there's some other companies out there that are dispensary companies. Pretty much the storefront type of companies. Do you think those are going to be some good investments, or probably stay away from those because that's a lot of
Well,
competition?
if you think about cookies or soda or cereal, you can't count how many different products there are, how many different companies there are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room on the shelves. There really is. We are in a new industry that is just touching the market's desires. We don't even know what we want yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure flower is going to end up being the least of all the things we do with cannabis. It will become trite. We'll be into consumable markets for edibles and liquids and vapors. Uh, Not to mention, smoking pot is probably the most unhealthiest way to consume marijuana. I hate to say it, but it's probably the truth. I smoke, but I do prefer cleaner methods. So in the long run, I see that cannabis will There are a lot of MSOs out there. Columbia Care, I really like Columbia Care. They've had a lot of momentum. They're moving fast. But I think what we're looking at is ingredients. For anybody to be a part of this, they don't want the whole plant. They just want part of the plant.
Right.
So the companies that are going to deal with CBG, CBN, CBDs, THC, Pabst Blue Ribbon has already got a THC beer out in California.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
These companies need the ingredients, and somebody has to sell it to them. And synthesizing and brewing it is probably what's going to happen. Willow Sciences is one of my favorites right now because they're providing ingredients for all these companies, and you can't name a company that's not going to want to be a part of this.
Nice. See, I've not looked too much into the ingredient side. A lot of the investing I like as far as the pot sector is kind of like Planet 13. That's kind of a unique experience. Industrial, what is it? Innovative Industrial Properties. That's a REIT. So they're not actually handling any product. They're just renting out the warehouses and farmland and all that stuff to the companies. So
doing great too.
Oh yeah,
Excellent.
man, it killed last year for 2020. I mean, it just went ballistic. And then that great dividend payment too. I think it's
dividends. I had somebody ask me about that, and that's you starting to see that occur. More and more cannabis companies are starting to offer dividends, and that's going to keep their investors.
Oh, absolutely, and they need to. You get more attention from those hedge funds and stuff when you have dividends that can continually grow your accounts and all that. So that is definitely, I think, a good thing.
And right now, a lot of the hedge funds can't help us because most of the cannabis stocks are still penny stocks on the OTC market, and they can't be put into these hedge funds. So until we can get these companies out of the OTC and up into the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange or wherever, the American, we're not going to see a lot of money pouring in from the big money.
Yeah.
However, whales, big money people, investors, they are definitely turning their eye. Right now, most don't know this, but the OTC market is pulling in 20% of all the market's capital.
Oh, wow.
It is breaking records right now. It is not the redheaded stepchild of the market anymore.
Oh, yeah. So, see, I just learned something because I don't really pay too much attention to the OTC markets because, they're less regulated and all that. Like, there's some, like Planet 13, of course, that I like, but majority of OTC companies outside of the pot sector are usually terrible, sketchy, scammy companies, and it's like looking for a diamond in a haystack or needle in a haystack, whatever you want to say.
That's what's been the problem. We have had a lot of scammers. I mean, even CanTrust, for goodness sake, it was the fifth largest by market cap in the world, and they got busted growing marijuana illegally. And you scratch your head. Why would you do that? And those are people at the top. You can only imagine what's going on at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So before we got off on that tangent, you were talking about some of those tax bills, and everybody heard you, but they weren't really hearing me. Of course, I wasn't really saying much. But as far as those, is one of those bills the one that you're talking about? Is one of those the ones that just passed through the House of Representatives and now is sitting in the Senate? The one I think it was going to be decriminalized and then expunge everybody who was a non-violent offender.
I haven't kept up with the federal aspect. I know they've been doing this from state to state, and it's been very successful. It's been going over very well with the communities and the states.
Yeah.
I haven't kept up with the one that they had federally, which state penitentiaries are not federal penitentiaries. They're two different categories. That's a whole different group of people there. And there's, most don't know it, but 2/3 of our inmates are there for cannabis.
Yeah,
cannabis, a non-offensive crime. So we need to get these taxpayers, non-violent people back on the streets. And I'm sure it's probably going to be passed. There's just no point to keeping them in prison anymore.
No, and especially those state and federal funded prisons, that's our tax dollars that pay for those. So it's a waste of tax dollars. We could be using that to buy more pot instead of keeping people in jail for pot, So,
right, let them out of jail. They'll start buying pot. The taxes are high enough to cover, it's going to work in their interest, I promise.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. If the government's our government heads can pull their heads out of you know where to actually do something.
Yeah, it's exciting because we are going through a very big change. Prohibition. This is going to go into history books, and we're riding this wild storm out. Um, we're on the inside right now and not
Hmm.
seeing it as clear as it's going to be depicted years from now. I hope I'm alive to be able to read about it because this is an exciting time, and I think we are only at the beginning of the season. It is going to turn out to be one hell of a great season for anybody. Now, I'm not saying every pot stock's going to surge, but with all the new investors coming in that don't do their DD, due diligence and research, a cute ticker can pull them in.
Yeah.
You know, USMJ, Spliff, Pot, uh, THC, any of these tickers just sound good. And
Yeah.
just that alone is going to bring people in, which there's nothing wrong with that if you're making money on that play. But for an investment, a long hold, you need to look at the company's momentum. But more than that, we've covered this in a way, management. Look at the people that are running these businesses. That's the bottom line. Even a company like CanTrust can go under with the wrong people. Make sure you got some honest people in there who have no track records to be ashamed of, who know what they're doing and are forthright and honest with their shareholders.
Yeah, we saw with Aurora Cannabis, which is one of the big three in Canada, their management almost led them, I think, to get close to going bankrupt or out of business there at the beginning of last year. They ended up turning it around after they, I believe, either the CEO retired or they fired him. Whatever the story is on that, we'll never really
Right.
know. But they were able to turn it around from what I've seen. But I think the U.S. is going to be, because the U.S. is always pretty much the head of the bull when it comes to new industries. We're behind right now, but once we actually get into the markets full force and all that, we'll probably pull ahead as one of the bigger
Well, let's face it,
distributors.
we're a capitalistic nation. We
Yeah.
know how to brand something, we know how to advertise it, we know how to celebrity endorse it. You can't do any of that in Canada. I mean, their packages all look like prescription medicine, and I don't even want to touch it. So, so I think when you let America have all the reins released and she can do with cannabis what she does with tennis shoes, perfume, or anything else, the market is going to explode. We've had a market here for 100, 200 years.
Yeah.
Now we're just allowing it out of the cage.
I would say the market has actually been around since the beginning of history because the Native Americans they've been smoking the peace pipes forever. So it's
Right, and they found a 3,600-year-old Chinese place where marijuana was still in a stone pipe. And it's the
wow.
same strain we're smoking today.
Wow, that's incredible. I hadn't seen that yet. I wonder if anybody tried to
It's
smoke
on my
that.
webpage. Come on
Oh,
over to my webpage, Penny Pot Stocks on Facebook. Answer two simple questions to get in, and you can get all sorts of information. Do you know that our $20 bill used to be printed out of hemp paper and had a hemp farm printed on the back of it in 1919?
I knew about the hemp farm on the back. I didn't realize the actual dollar itself was made out of hemp. That's very interesting. I need to when I get
Yeah,
some free time. I need to get over there on your site and do check out some
yeah,
of
do
those
that,
things you
please.
got because you're definitely putting out a lot of good information. Now with the current economic situation, we may be going towards inflation or deflation. There's a big debate between that. With this being a new industry, and also we have crypto as becoming a pretty hot emerging market as well. Do you see the inflation or deflation causing any problems? And then do you also see a crossover between pot and crypto, like some type of maybe pot companies going on the blockchain and that are publicly ran by token owners or coin owners?
Well, first off, when marijuana became essential, it really wasn't for the COVID epidemic. It really wasn't for the people. Going essential was a financial decision. With all the businesses being shut down, the mom and pop businesses generating taxes, they needed tax money.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, as I said, a standing market ready to buy marijuana if you would just let them. So they let them. And that helped all these cities create a lot of tax revenue during a crisis.
Yeah.
So whatever the monetary situation does, sin stocks, gambling, cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana. These sort of lust and wanted and desired things always do well. So whether the market goes up or down, these are recession inflation proof. They are always going to be wanted by the people. If you make it legal, it'll just make it easier.
Right.
Right now, still in a fumble land.
So you look at it like a commodity, is what you're basically saying. Like it's a commodity like oil or something like that.
Well, it certainly is being used that way right now by the government. Without any tax deductions and high taxes to the consumer, they are raking in a lot of money off of it, and it is illegal. I don't know where they put their money. Do they put it in the bank? I don't know.
I'm sure they put them in some accounts that are probably not in the U.S. and other stuff. I could go off all day about our government and the tangents and problems I have with them, but I won't do all that. But yeah, to the other question, and there may be something that already exists. If there's not, then I probably just pissed some guy off in Australia who had the idea already. But
The cannabis token?
yeah, is there a cannabis token yet or crypto?
Yes, there is. It slips my mind at the moment because it is obscure. And there are quite a few cannabis companies in one way or another connecting into blockchain.
Okay.
Definitely for following strains, for data accumulation. They're trying to work it out for route to market. Blockchain is going to be a serious part of cannabis. There's just so much information and it could be altered and defamed. Blockchain is going to protect that. I don't know. You know, a lot of cannabis companies have already used crypto formats to pay for cannabis when people wanted to pay for it. We couldn't use credit cards. You couldn't use your bank account. So there have been a lot of creative ways to pay for marijuana, cashless ways. And I'm not in on all of them, but it's out there, it's happening, and I'm sure you'll see more of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to dive into that. I just got into crypto here lately myself. I've actually been somewhat of a pot stock investor since before the run that you were mentioning at the beginning of the video. Yeah, yeah. I didn't really know. That's when I just started trading and getting into the stock market. And that's actually what got me into it was pot stocks. So that's why I have such a love for them. And
Me
I like
too.
to talk.
End of prohibition. Had to be a surge coming. I just didn't know it'd be so long down the road.
Yeah, yeah, and I got lucky pretty much and got in and hit a couple of them like Aurora before. I think I got an Aurora at like $1.50 or something before it ran all the way up to whatever it ran to back then. But
Almost 11.
yeah, almost 11. And there was a couple of them I'd got in there like that. As far as some other unique investments, what do you think about BLOZF? I think it's Cannabis Technologies. That's the
Cannabix.
breathalyzer. Yeah.
Right. Cannabix has only got one other competitor, and they're not a public company. It's a Hound Dog, I believe it is.
I think so.
A Hound something.
Yeah.
But they have a breathalyzer for both THC and alcohol. But it isn't working yet. And I think Cannabix is testing theirs right now. I think they will be the only one in the market. And let's face it, every police station wants one. Cops don't really like cannabis being legal, and nobody wants anybody driving stoned. No matter what we think about it, the community doesn't want that.
Yeah.
So, honestly, I think it's going to be well, since they have no competitors, it's going to be a grand slam if this thing passes. I'm not happy about it, but I think it's going to do quite well.
Yeah, see, I think there's a lot of opportunities within the pot sector like that. That's kind of that unique situation. Like they've got the breathalyzer, and we talked about Planet 13. Is there any other unique opportunities that you've ran across that you think is kind of stands out from the normal pot stock picks?
Well, you know, the psilocybin has hit the market hard here. The mushrooms.
Okay.
You also have morning glories coming on, which is LSA, pretty much the same as LSD. These are moving, and there's quite a lot going on. Now, I don't believe any of them will have any products in our country for quite a while, but there's a lot of interest in it. Particularly, there is one company out there that is going to synthesize psilocybin, and I find that interesting
Hmm.
because Compass Pathways, uh, a new psilocybin company, has got a patent pretty much on LSD in the UK and the USA, which has been fought in court and they've won. So it's going to make it hard for any other company to sell LSD, acid. But if you can synthesize it, change it, create a new delivery format that makes a difference to how it's absorbed and reacts in the body, then other companies are going to have a chance. So I think the synthesize breaks away from that. Let me see what else would be exciting in the cannabis industry right now. Well, you've got a lot of drug manufacturers that are going to be focusing in on CBN, sleep medication.
Hmm.
Um, CBN is very potent. That's what makes us sleepy when we smoke the indica. And they can isolate that now, but they have to do it through synthesizing. They can't extract it. They would have to extract something like 1,000 pounds to get an ounce of it,
Okay.
which is way too expensive.
Yeah.
But now we can get it as much as we want and make medicines. They have anti-nausea medicines. So you've got to watch a few of these uh, pharma companies. They're going to be coming out with drugs. And let me tell you, if anything we know, drug companies boom when they come out with something that fights cancer or some debilitating problem that we have. So there's going to be a lot of growth there once all of our research comes together. Uh, there's just too much going on to keep up with all of it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I understand. There definitely is a lot going on. Speaking of the psychedelics, I have seen there's a lot of scientists and stuff doing research on these psychedelics for like anxiety. And of course, marijuana itself is already being used for anxiety and a lot of the mental things like bipolar and stuff. But I've been hearing quite a bit about the psychedelics being actually able to alter your brain and fix things like alcoholism or heroin addiction and stuff like that. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, at the risk of saying too much about myself, I've experienced LSD more than once.
Okay.
And anybody who has, and this may surprise you, but you will look at Nobel Prize winners, you will find 30% of them have tripped on LSD, and most will credit their ideas to the LSD. The fact is, it does open up neural pathways. It helps us to empathize. It helps us to understand. It's a way of gathering insight that you can't do consciously because there's too many preconcepts and ideas we have that stop us from opening ourselves up. Um, yes, I believe it can help people in a lot of ways under controlled circumstances. Now, I've got to say that I never took it in micro doses. I'm sure that's probably the best and healthiest way to do it.
You
Um,
probably see less pink frogs that way.
well, megadosing has a lot of benefits as well. They used megadosing in the prison systems in America in the late 40s and early 50s, and 7 out of 10 people getting out of prison were coming back. They
Wow.
started this program, and 3 out of 10 were returning. But once LSD and Timothy Leary became popular and it hit the streets in the 60s, the program completely stopped and it's never been heard of again. So we have decades of information on
Yeah.
LSD and how it helps. So that is not theoretical, it is true.
Okay. So it looks like we'll be having probably big pharma come into the psychedelics and the marijuana markets when they can get their hands on it like they like to do. So there definitely probably could be some good investments there, like you were saying. Is there?
They're going to try. But
Yeah.
see, this is what I was saying about Compass Pathways. Compass Pathways got a patent on as close as you can get to the LSD molecule itself, which
Oh
by rights
wow.
can't be done. You can't patent something that's naturally found in nature.
Yeah.
You have to make it. But they have got patents in the UK and the USA, which is going to make it difficult for any pharmaceutical company, let alone a competitor, to sell LSD. You've got to find a way to alter it, change it, make it different, or you're not going to, they're going to sue you. And Compass Pathways used to be a charitable organization and made a lot of deals with charitable organizations to share their information, which they backed out of and have now become a public profiteering company and have left everyone else behind and really angered a lot of people. However, I think they're going to make a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, if they have the patent on pretty much LSD, like you were saying, that's going to be hard to compete with. That's
It, it is. It boggles my mind how it's happened, but what is, and all you can do is get on the train and enjoy the ride.
yeah. So here lately, we have been seeing, and it may be coming with all these bills and different things, but we have been seeing a lot of these pot stocks start making moves back up because for a long time they've kind of been at their lows. You know, they had the initial big run, and then they just been in lows forever. But we're actually starting to see them drag up out of those lows. And from a technical standpoint, I see possible a lot of breakouts that could be happening on many different these pot stocks if they continue the uptrend that they're going in.
Well, as I said, there has been, as of recent, 20% of all the market's capital has been running through the OTC. And the EV market, the cannabis market, these are hot markets right now. There is a lot of attention on them, a lot of new investors bringing in new capital. I think we're going to see changes faster than we can keep up with.
Yeah.
And the momentum is building right now. The excitement is building. You can see the volume is building. There have been many runners. But with penny stocks, they come down as fast as they go up, if not faster.
Yeah.
So you've really got to be on your game here. If you're going to invest in one, then find one that's got good management, good fundamentals. I say don't jump in unless it's got 3 months minimum of uptrending. 6 months is even better.
Right.
And then don't worry about the dips. Don't worry because you're trusting in what's going to happen later, not what's happening now. Right now, it's hard seas. But where we're going, they're nice beaches. So, put it on the back burner if you're investing. Don't let the market throw you and make you feel like you should jump ship or move.
That's pretty good advice. Do you think those dips on some of these companies would be good buying opportunities, the ones that are in those uptrends?
Absolutely. I bought most of my penny stocks in 2018, 2019. And as I said, it was a down run the entire time.
Yeah.
I was only making money on bounces. Nothing was really growing. So by the time I hit 220 and we hit the COVID crisis, that was our bottom. March 20th was the bottom for the cannabis market. It turned and we became essential. We got respect. Reefer madness went out the window. We got some love and everything changed. Now I think it is just continuing. It is not going to cease. It is ever growing from this point forward like a tree. Once you get a couple leaves on it, the leaves start blooming faster and faster. The mergers, the acquisitions are going to flourish. I've averaged down most of my big losers, 80%, because I can get 8 to 10 shares, 15 shares for the price of one.
Yeah.
Not only am I averaging my price down and bringing it into a normal, reachable proposition now, but I've got a ton of shares that are going to cash in. And my point is not to jump out as soon as I hit even and get a little money. If they've come this far and have finally come out of the dip to bring me back, trust that it's going to go on. That's why we're here. Make your bucks on your plays, but pick some investments that you constantly add to, even if they're growing. Don't be afraid to add to it. You'd have never added to Netflix if you waited for it to dip when it first started climbing.
Yeah. That's a good point. There's definitely a lot to buy in the dips, especially if you're long-term investing. Like you said, you don't have to worry about it in the long term if you believe it's going to keep going up because you
like Planet 13. It is going nowhere. Is it ever going to go out of business?
I don't think so.
No. So that is a long-term hold. They'll be there for 100 years. I would put my money in them and just Did they have a dividend yet?
Not yet. I think they're waiting until they uplist to the NASDAQ because I saw they are wanting to uplist to the NASDAQ
Oh,
as soon as possible. And when they do, I think they had mentioned a little bit. I think it was like just a little crumb they had threw out and said that we may do some dividends here in the future.
when they get to the NASDAQ, Planet 13 should explode. That has got classy written all over it.
Yeah.
Everybody, I mean, it's like a Hard Rock Cafe, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, you start putting those, one in Chicago, one in Philadelphia. I think they're going to be outstanding. They've got a very unique uh, business model
Hmm.
that hasn't been duplicated anywhere.
Yeah, and they actually started doing a lot of delivery, especially during COVID, delivering to
Right.
the hotels and all those places. So I think that was very smart. That right there showed me that they do have good management to make that call and say, "Hey, let's expand our delivery fleet and deliver as much as we can." And
I can't help but laugh. I'm thinking about during the crisis when we had people driving up to the corners to pick up their marijuana from these dispensaries. And it brought back a lot of memories of the days when it wasn't allowed and it was the exact same thing we were doing.
yeah,
Boy, we've come a long
yeah,
way.
yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been a long ways for sure. And I agree too that you said earlier in the stream. You said that a lot of cities and communities are actually embracing it instead of pushing it away. Like Las Vegas, when I was there, they would be like, "Well, you can't really smoke in the casino hotels." But if you're in the smoking side, the cigarette smoking side, it doesn't really matter. It's like every floor I would go on to, you could just smell the pot all through the casino. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was a cool experience. But they,
Yeah, honestly, I think vapes are probably more uh, consumer friendly for social environments. They don't reek like cigars and cigarettes. The vapors are very friendly. They give everybody smoking them what they want, and nobody around you is bothered if they don't
yeah.
particularly care for it.
Do you have any companies in mind? Like I said earlier, Altria, they own Juul and a couple of different things like that. You think they could possibly swing into the pot vapor market when they get the chance to?
Well, I don't see why they wouldn't. I thought that would have happened already, actually,
It may have in the places where it's legal. I'm not that sure yet.
But they went through when we came through that crisis with the black market THC vapors, and everybody had that lung disease. They were poisoned, basically. Um, that put the scare out across the board for all vapor products,
Yeah,
regardless of what they were or who made them. Juul got a burden of that weight for no good reason whatsoever. Um, I think the market took a hit, and people, it's kind of like the Tylenol scare. It took a while before Tylenol came back, but they came back. I think vapor will be much bigger than flower. I
I'd
think,
say you're right because the younger generations they're all about the vaping. You have a whole kind of hipster type of demographic that is already vaping regular the vape liquids or whatever. I don't vape, so I don't know that much about vaping. But a lot of there's a big demographic out there for it, and
sure.
they might not be able to do it with weed yet, but I think they could switch over and hop on that bandwagon. In fact, I think they will hop over on that bandwagon when they're able to.
Yeah, it just has a lot of pros. It's clean. There's no ash. There's no fire. You can smoke it in the rain, smoke it in the wind, smoke it in a building. You don't ever bother anybody. You can fall asleep smoking it in bed and you don't burn yourself up. So, not to mention it's healthy. As far as we know, there are no problems. There's definitely no ash, no tar, no gunk buildup inside your lungs, which is really the worst part about smoking anything is the ash and the tar.
Yeah,
Look at your pipe. For anybody who smokes marijuana in a pipe, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah. And is there any companies besides Juul that is on the vapor market, like solely focused on vapes, or?
There are quite a lot of vapor companies, and I have been turning my attention away from vapors not for any reason but my own personal. I
Okay.
haven't focused on them. Um, There are a lot of companies that you have vapes now that just have terps. If you're just after the flavor, you don't want the CBDs or the THC. You can have just the THC. You can get a blend of THC and CBD or just CBD. The vapor market is going to open up. What you want, you can get. There's not going to be anything I can even imagine that they won't cover in tablet form or liquid form or vapor form. Every single thing that can be done is probably going to be done until they figure out what works and what's liked and what isn't.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of CBD, what's your thoughts on CBD and any of the CBD possible investments? Because that I've kind of stayed away from the CBD side of things and more focused on, like I said, the Planet 13s, the IIPRs, that type of stuff. As far as CBD, though, what's your thoughts on that? Because I mean, here in where I'm from, it just became legal a little while ago, and we actually have a couple of CBD stores, and it's been sold in the
What
gas.
state are you in?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, we're surrounded by weed, but for some reason we decided we're going to take our time before we legalize it. I guess I don't know.
CBD, it went real big in 2018. It started taking off then, and then we had the hemp bill pass, and that pretty much was a green light for all CBD products, except that 2 days later, the FDA came out and said it's not. We haven't studied it. We've just made it a drug, an Epilex, so how can we say you can put it in food? So there's a lot of scare that too much of CBD could be a problem. So until there's studies, many states are being cautious. But again, there is a lot of evidence, maybe not scientific, but that's catching up, that CBDs definitely work for pain. They definitely work for calming agents. It wasn't until here recently we discovered we had CBD cannabinoid receptors in our bodies that
Okay.
that purposely use these CBDs. One of them is strictly to use it for mental purposes. One is physical. And it's almost like a magic bullet because your cannabinoid receptors know where to send it, what part of you, what aspect of you needs it, and distributes it there. It's almost like a pro drug. It doesn't activate until it's in you, and it has no negative side effects. And that's what's going to make CBD so desirable, is that it is activated in you and becomes smart. It knows what to do, and there are no side effects as of now, none, just as there have been no deaths attributed it to THC.
Yeah.
You can't OD on it. So there's nothing safer as far as 1,000 years have proven.
Yeah. So you pretty much though you're saying that kind of that boat kind of sailed already from the hemp bill,
No, I
or
think CBD is still running. It's
okay.
just now, I think the consumers are going to get confused because we're talking CBN, CBGs,
Yeah.
and they had a hard enough time just getting THC and CBD down pat.
Yeah.
Uh, Knowing the difference between hemp and marijuana, cannabis. So I think CBDs are going to continue to grow. And as a matter of fact, I would be willing to bet in 5 years when they're legal, you're not going to be able to go down any aisle in the supermarket and not see CBD enriched foods because cereal, oatmeals, cookies, it's just going to be everywhere because it is good for you and doesn't have any negative side effects. That's going to be a moneymaker for everybody.
Okay. So, do you think there's going to be like, because you mentioned the grocery stores being on every aisle, do you think there's going to be grocery stores just catered to pot and CBD products? There may be some that exist, but like I said, I didn't really see any in Las Vegas.
Well, your dispensaries could start adding these products. If some bread company started making hemp bread, they may start selling the bread there next to it or hemp milk. Um, you got one company out there. Who is that? Wayward. Can't remember their name right now. Wayward. They are building a cannabis mall.
Oh, wow.
Um, you can look that up online. The last time they mentioned it, it surged. Their news is far few and in between, and I forget exactly where they're building it, but they're building a cannabis mall. So, yeah, people have ideas, and I think you could see a grocery store like Sam's Mart that just panders to the hemp market, CBDs, anything hemp. You know,
The way
you
we're
could buy a hemp wallet, hemp glasses, hemp toys, hemp food, hemp sheets, hemp toiletries, hemp tampons. Uh, Most people don't know that hemp, right now, the Chernobyl incident, marijuana surrounds Chernobyl because it's
Oh,
the only
really?
thing we know of that cleans radiation from the ground.
Oh, that's big.
Marijuana does that.
I didn't know that. That's really big. That's that could transfer into some other things like military type of stuff or whatever. I'm trying to find. I was trying to look up the wayward to see if we could get the exact maybe
um,
ticker symbol, but I'm not having any luck with it. But that's okay. I think it's exciting because I'd be excited to see like pot Oreos on the shelf and things like that. Because I think there was a show on Netflix. If you guys haven't watched it yet, it was a cooking cannabis show, and it was a competition show. It was one of the chefs versus chefs, but they had to incorporate THC and CBDs into their dishes. So I think that could be a cool industry for the restaurant industry. I used to manage several different restaurants back in the day, and I could see a THC infused type of restaurant doing really well,
I
especially
think what you might see quickly, I don't know why I think of this, but maybe CBD butter, because butter is very easily made with it. So, you just butter your toast, CBD. I don't know. I just think that this is just the start,
yeah.
just the very beginning of what is going to happen. And being a capitalistic nation, we're going to look for every single way to make money off of this. And it's going to get very innovative. We're going to see a lot of creative ideas, uh, digital platforms, new sciences. We've already found new ways to do business without banking. We have come this far to
Yeah.
billion-dollar corporations without a penny from the banks.
Yeah.
We've managed to survive. Uh,
That's a
if we can
testament
do
to the
it through
strength.
this, what's going to happen when they finally give us the green light?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the cannabis sector has been through a lot, and it stood the test of time so far against everything that's been thrown at it. So, I mean, that is a good point to show that strength of cannabis. And then, like we were talking about earlier, the blockchain, I guess, has helped a lot of those companies move money around because, like you said, they can't use banking. Uh, my next question is, though, is Elon Musk partnering with anybody to get some weed growing on Mars? Because I know he's wanting to go to Mars.
Well, they got Wi-Fi on the moon. Why not cannabis on Mars?
Yeah.
Uh, Geez, I don't know. Elon, he may find some new electric lights for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, I keep mentioning hemp, and there is a big difference between the cannabis market, marijuana, and the hemp market. And I do believe the hemp market is going to lag behind uh, quite a few years
Just
behind the marijuana market.
just for newer investors, what is those differences?
The marijuana cannabis market is the THC factor is the primary factor, the part that gets you high. You have to have less than 3% as it stands right now by the Farm Bill in any hemp product. Hemp is just then becomes a fiber like cotton or wool that you use or plastic to make anything you want. And that's exactly what it can be used for, plastics and fabrics and wood and insulation and concrete. They use hemp for quite a lot of things. And I do believe in 10 years, hemp will be bigger than cannabis. Marijuana is a consumer good. But when you get into uh, goods for building and production, uh, I think hemp is going to be far bigger than marijuana.
Yeah, I do a little bit of real estate investing, and a while back I found this interesting house, and it was made out of this weird material on the walls, and I couldn't figure out what it was, so I started researching it, and it was hempcrete is what they call it, hempcrete
Right.
blocks. and
Yes.
it helped with keeping the house cool and keeping the house warm and keeping the house dry. Like they didn't have leaks in the roof and stuff like that. So I was like, wow, that could be something for the real estate
Right.
market for.
Rot resistant, bug resistant, mildew and mold resistant. And the biggest thing that they like to promote is the greenness, the green footprint it leaves behind.
Yeah.
It's and then you got insulation that you can put in the roofs, and they have uh, wood that's twice as hard as hardwood, made from hemp.
Hmm.
Um, it's just unbelievable that once you got a guy out in Singapore that makes pallets out of hemp.
Oh. So pretty much you can make whatever you want out of it. Sounds like.
Yeah, they'll
Uh,
be making plastic toys out of here soon, plastic bottles. And seriously, and the plastic will degrade, and you can put a clock in it so that the plastic degrades at a certain time limit. They have ways of doing this. So petroleum plastics that stick around for 10,000 years, I'd like to say are going to be a thing of the past, but they won't they won't keep producing them anymore once we start making hemp plastic. That is for sure.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I was trying to look and see if there was any Hempcrete type of public companies. I'm not really seeing
No,
any. There's none yet. Okay.
no hemp. There's very few hemp companies out there. Um, you've got a couple, Hemp Inc., which is prepared to supply all the hemp material to the companies who are going to use it to make their products. They're the biggest in, well, I think they're the biggest in this side of the hemisphere. Right now, all they do is make hemp cigarettes, and they have what they call kins. Um, these are groups of people that harvest and plant their hemp, but they are vets and orphans and abused families, wives and children. And they all help each other, and they work on this, I guess you'd call it a farm, a cultivation plant. And he has these all over the country. Very unique. It's something unlike any other company. I think in 10 years, Hemp Inc. could be the darling hemp company of America, just because what he's doing for caring for the less fortunate Americans in our country.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty good. I've seen hemp and I've looked into it a little bit back when it kind of first went public, and at that point I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I have to go back and check that one out.
Yeah, it's down right now because, as I said, there's not a lot of market for hemp, cannabis, the marijuana aspects. That's what's surging right now.
Yeah.
Hemp has fallen to the background. But as a buy opportunity, if it isn't going to surge for another 5 to 10 years, anyways, you're not going to get it any cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, and that's what I'm wondering about. So I'm sitting here thinking in my head right now. I was thinking about that house with that hempcrete, and the real estate market overall. We're getting a lot of different types of houses being built that are not the traditional way. Like they have the box houses that come in like a box, and then you just like open it up and it builds itself. Like a lot of different things like that. And hempcrete, I think, could be probably a big industry if the real estate industry continues to go that route, because traditional wood, there's a lot of upkeep where you're constantly having
Yeah,
to upkeep
and
your house.
hemp grows so quick. I mean, in some regions of the world, you can get a couple crops a year because it grows so quick. They now have plants that grow in 3 months, and they are completely done. So paper, there's no need to make paper from trees anymore or houses from trees. You can keep growing this stuff repeatedly over and over again. And while you're doing this, the roots are aerating the soil, uh, purging the ground. They don't need any fertilizer or pesticides or weedicides, um, because they create enough foliage to block all of the weeds. There's just so much. They purge the water that passes by them. They clean the water. They use 1/3 less water than cotton does. There is just so many aspects. Do you realize that back in the early 1900s, it was the law that every farmer had to grow 6 to 7 acres of hemp on his property and rotate it?
Yeah, I remember I'd done some research and it was legal back then, and it was used for a lot of things. And then I don't know what happened at some point where the government decided to be the government like they are, messed everything up. But yeah, I do know that hemp has been around for a long time and used in a lot of different nations and past communities and stuff like that. So I, I kind of think you're right on this. I think that has a lot of potential, and especially since those companies are pretty undervalued right now, with all the going green. And I don't know, I'm not going to get too conspiratorial. I like to get a little into the conspiracy theories here and there, but the World Econ Forum has been talking about their Great Reset, and they want to make everything go green. And this is all on their website. I'm not putting out a conspiracy theory. You can go to the worldeconforum.com, check it out, and see it. It's right there. It says Great Reset. So whether you believe it or not, I don't know. That's what they're saying. But they do want everybody, all the big major companies, to go green. So if that's the case, if something like that was to happen, and which we're going towards that way anyway. You know, you see it with Tesla and the EV companies like you were talking about. We're going away from the stuff that hurts the environment towards these more green solutions. So maybe hemp may be a buying opportunity right now, because if everything goes to that, the way it sounds, hemp could pretty much make anything. You can pretty much do anything with it. So.
It is one of the most versatile products I've ever seen. Do you know you could be stranded on an island with nothing but hemp growing, marijuana growing on it, and have fresh water, and you would not only survive, you would thrive, because marijuana is the superfood of superfoods. It not only has protein, it has all 21 amino acids that the body must have to survive. It has vitamin B complex, it has vitamin C. It literally could keep you alive if it's all you had with fresh water.
Well, I think you just
and healthy.
I think you just answered my question about Elon and taking weed to Mars, because that's all they need then to survive on Mars. So there we go.
Yeah. Well, you eat it, you smoke it first, and then you get the munchies and you eat it. And the cycle continues. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I had an experience with some brownies back in my younger days, and let's just say I ended up eating the whole pan of brownies, which was a mistake. So, but before we ended off here, I just did a top 5 pot stock video for my picks for 2021. Could you make a list of 5? Because it was really hard for me to put that list together.
Wow. Try not to be biased here. You know.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think there's a couple here that are given. They're just obvious. Grow Generation. It's tearing it up. It's going to be the Home Depot for sure.
Okay.
IIPR.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what could go wrong there. That's working out brilliantly, and it should just continue doing what it's doing.
Yeah. I think that one. I think that has to be on every single pot investor. Not even people who invest in pot either. Like, that's just a very solid run company. You know,
absolutely
they're killing it.
I mean, it's a right. You don't even think of it as a cannabis company, do you?
No. Yeah, it's a. I call it a REIT. You said right. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. I don't know. I'm bad with words.
REIT, right? It's probably REIT, because I say right, it's wrong.
Well, all I know is how they work, and that's the only part that's important. Not really how to pronounce it. So I could be wrong. But yeah, that's definitely a REIT, and that's one that should be on everybody's list. Absolutely.
You know, it's tough to say, because with these mergers and these deals, this Tilray and Aphria, Village Farms and Canopy.
Oh, speaking of Village Farms, I really like Village Farms because they're not just a pot company. They're already making money off of cucumbers and tomatoes, and they also have a renewable energy subsidiary as well, where they're operating their farms off of landfill gas. So it's like a triple whammy, in my opinion. You're hitting 3 different sectors. Point.
You're right. You're absolutely right. They don't make as much off their cucumbers and their tomatoes, but it is steady revenue that is outside of the cannabis market. Mm-hmm. It is diversification.
Yeah. We got some people asking about Kern. I'm not familiar with Kern. Kern?
Yeah, Kern. I haven't heard of Kern in the news much recently, but from what I get a good sense that I liked what I read. I can't recall the recent news, but Kern was okay in my book from what I remember. You got quite a few companies like Green Thumb that are probably going to bounce back.
That's one of the MSOs, right? Green Thumb?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, uh, you've got a lot of companies that are working over in Europe that really excite me too,
Okay.
because Europe is pretty much the same size as America's market, and they they are just opening up to recreational, but they're pretty much getting smothered medicinally, which is more expensive than recreational. So it's very profit making over there. So um, any of the companies that are working through Germany right now have definitely got some potential to boom. And to be honest, right after this presidential election, I've had to look at my portfolio and reconsider my holdings because I do believe the tide is changing now.
Yeah.
Right now, uh, I've got to start pulling away from where I've been playing and actually start taking some footholds and standing on some American companies that are going to grow very quickly. And we have so many of them right now. You know, Columbia Care is another one that had 600% increase year over year. You just had a tiny company that did 1,000% over quarter. Um, all of that was Willow Science, and that was only with one contract.
Oh
One
wow.
contract gave him 1,000%. So the jumping, it's going to be like a horse race. These horses are going to be going back and forth in front of each other. To actually tell you which one is going to be out front, I don't know, but they're all going to be moving hard. And you'll be able to tell the losers because they will fall behind.
Yeah.
They will fall behind.
Yeah, I'm looking at Kern here on my phone, KERN. They actually had a pretty good year in 2020. It looks like they finished off with 58 million in assets and only 21 million in liabilities. The years before that was a little shaky, so I don't know. Like I said, I don't know much about it. I was just trying to look at it real quick. And their revenues has increased, but not by very much. So I don't know. The financials to me 2020 looked good, but to me, I'd probably say I'd want to see a little bit more from it this year, in
Well,
my
some of
opinion.
your companies did really good during COVID. They made
Yeah,
out, they got their deliveries on order, they got their men out in the corners.
yeah,
They did very well. Um, Others did not do very well. Others suffered. They couldn't sell like a lot of companies. And they're going through a recovery now like any other business. Um, but again, these smaller companies are being swallowed up left and right.
hmm,
They aren't out there, and I'm talking about legitimate companies. We got companies that probably have no right being there,
yeah,
and you can tell by how many SKUs they have, how many products. Are they working with edibles? Are they getting new strains? Um, if they aren't working with any other company, you got to ask yourself why.
yeah, yeah. They should be
You
working
know,
together.
um, so I do believe that you're going to see a lot of serious growth with small companies, large companies, and depending on your budget, not all of us can jump into Curaleaf, which is going to take off. Of course it is. But there's IIPR. I can't even afford IIPR the way I would like to get in like I do most stocks.
Yeah,
I'm a penny stock trader for the most part because that's where every cannabis stock was in 2018.
yeah,
And now some have graduated and gotten up onto the major markets, which has done a wonder for getting us seen and noticed.
yeah.
But there's
Absolutely.
not enough of them up there yet. Not
Right.
enough. But I do believe that is going to change this year. I think we're going to see some laws change that will put cannabis on a more equal trading ground. And when we get on an equal trading ground, we're going to grow because, as I said, there have been consumers for this market forever
Yeah.
in every country.
Oh
You
yeah.
don't have to create a market for this.
No, it's
They're just waiting to do it.
yeah. You're right. The market is there, and it's on a global level. That's for sure. What about ETFs? From what I'm aware, there's two cannabis ETFs, YOLO and MSOS. What are your thoughts on those? Or is there any other ones that I don't know about?
Oh, goodness, you put me on the spot here. Boy, I wish I had my notes in front of me. Uh-huh. How convenient. No, there are more than one ETFs. Um, YOLO is definitely a good one. I do believe they've just gone through a low spot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the MSO is a new one, and that is particularly focused just on, as their name shows, MSOs in America. I think they made Dabo here and something else, but primarily that's all they do, which really should be a safe bet for novice investors. There are a lot of companies to look at. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Even for me, I've been involved for 3 years and I'm overwhelmed because there are more companies constantly coming out, deals happening, deals breaking, new shares being put out, laws changing. It's very volatile. An ETF fights all of that for you. They put in a breadbasket, a bunch of good companies they've already done the DD on,
Yeah.
and you can trust because that's what they're there for. And just buy the stock and let it ride. And I think every 30 days, I think they're doing it every 30 days, they refresh because our market is so volatile and changes so quickly. Where most ETFs wait 90 days, maybe even 6 months before they turn over stocks. So they're working to make sure they have the best stocks inside their portfolios. So that's a real safe bet for a novice investor. Even if you can't afford many, buy some. Just let them sit there and grow while you're learning how to trade on the side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good advice. My last question was going to be, do you have any advice for novice traders or new investors to the pot market? But that was pretty good advice right
I do.
there. Yeah, but go ahead if you got
As
more.
you know, putting it all together. Look, if you're not going to go for an ETF because they can be a little more expensive, maybe you're looking for penny stocks, sub penny. Those are not bad companies just because they're cheap. They're cheap just because they haven't got a lot of money and they're not very big in their startups. I would say look for companies that have been, look at your charts. You need to look at charts, folks. Don't
Yeah.
ignore the charts. The charts are your friends. Even if you don't understand what it all means, you know what an upline is, and you know what a downline is. Look for ones that have uplines for at least 3 months. It's okay if it's doing this going up, as long as it's not doing that going down.
Yeah.
3 months, 6 months. Put your money in there. Doesn't matter how much you know. You're trusting the market. The trend is your friend. Don't put your life savings in it. Put some in it so that everybody wants to trade. And a new investor has an itch to buy something. They
Yeah.
really do.
Oh yeah.
So put your money in there, scratch that itch, and then go learn something. Study a few stocks and get that out of your system. Just let a good, positive trend working stock work for you while you go learn. Don't jump into something with hope.
Yeah.
With not knowledge and just hope, that's a perfect recipe to lose everything you've got.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great advice there because there's no room for hope in the stock market. This is a
The
dark, sketchy place where there's all kinds of scammers and crazy companies and all that everywhere.
market and the government.
Yeah.
Don't hope for them.
Definitely
I
don't
lost
hope.
a lot of money this last uh, when they were fighting for the stimulus package. I thought it was going to pass before Christmas, and I bet on the government voting on that stimulus bill.
Mm, yeah.
Don't bet on the government. Don't bet on the market.
Yeah.
Betting is gambling. We're not gambling. You're you're hedging your investments by what you know. The more you know, the more you'll grow.
Yeah. Hey, I like that. That's a nice slogan. You should copyright that slogan, put it on a shirt or something, sell that. Well, John, man, it's been a great discussion. I wish I could talk to you all night about this. You got so much knowledge in that head of yours. It'd be great to pick it. So I think
Yeah, I'd like
whenever,
to have my notes over here.
yeah,
I'd sound more intelligent. I'd be throwing tickers out to you left and right. Really, come to my page, Penny Pot Stocks. I put the information together in a very formative way. We're more like a magazine. Um, I cover anything hemp and pot. If it's in the world and it's in a company, it's going to be on my page. And please help me. Come put some information on there. Not just the link. We're not Google. We don't bring in links. We bring in the news.
there you go. So appreciate everybody joining us on the stream
Yeah.
here. We got a pretty good crowd. John, I'm go ahead and throw the invite out there. You can come back anytime you're ready, and we can work it out. You can hop back,
Thank you.
and we can have another discussion maybe in the future here soon. Maybe
I'll have
soon.
my notes.
Yeah, yeah. Get your notes all ready to go. We might even do a little debating about some pot stocks here and there. You
Oh,
know,
I
that'd
love
be
to debate.
yeah, yeah. That'd be fun. That'd be a fun time. So, yeah, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John, for being on. You guys have a great rest of your day and be ready for the stock market tomorrow. And till next
No,
time.
Tuesday. Tuesday.
Oh, is it closed tomorrow?
Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was more. I don't even pay
You'd be looking
attention.
at your charts going, boy, it's really slow today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been trading crypto too lately, and crypto is 24/7. So
Yeah.
I kind of been back and forth, and I've been forgetting what days the market's closed and all that. So it's all. It's when you're an
No, it's
investor,
good.
you're all over the place. So, but yeah, everybody have a great rest of your night. We'll see you on Tuesday in the stock market. Hope you guys can get some good gains. Until next time.